It's just $30 each. Click, call, or visit a Spectrum store today.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Stephanie Simon. Here's your Spectrum News in 90.
The problem is I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States.
The U.S. and Ukraine have called off a defense agreement supposed to be signed today after an exchange between President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy turned adversarial. Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance criticized Zelenskyy for what they say is disrespect to the U.S. and said Ukraine is overestimating its bargaining abilities. Trump later released a statement saying Zelenskyy can, quote, come back when he's ready for peace. Pope Francis suffered a serious coughing fit Friday, resulting in him being put on non-invasive mechanical ventilation. The Vatican says he responded well and remained conscious and alert. The Pope's condition remains guarded, and the Vatican says he will not be presiding over Ash Wednesday services. A federal judge has temporarily blocked the Trump administration's mass firings of probationary federal workers. His ruling determined the terminations were likely unlawful. Another hearing on the issue is scheduled in the coming weeks. And a nationwide protest is underway demonstrating against retailers. The organization, the People's Union USA, is asking American consumers not to spend money for 24 hours. That's your Spectrum News in 90.
Welcome to The Big Deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. Today marks the 50th episode of this program, which was launched last year to focus on the biggest deal there is in America, the future of our country and its people. With a new administration in the White House and a new Congress, we're exploring the people and the policies and the politics and the power that are shaping our nation. The big deal this week is the stunning shouting match between President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy inside the White House. It's unlike anything we've ever seen before between an American president and a foreign leader. The president castigated Zelenskyy in the Oval Office, calling him ungrateful and disrespectful. Shortly after that, Zelenskyy departed from the White House abruptly. We're going to talk about all of that and more on tonight's episode. But first, here's a look at that tense exchange.
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once this entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I answer?
Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone.
Joining me now with more are two top political analysts. Curtis Jackson is a political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Columbus, Ohio. Cassie Semien is a political reporter for Spectrum News in Washington, D.C. And Cassie, President Trump says that Zelenskyy is not, quote, ready for peace if America is involved, and, quote, can come back when he's ready for peace. Was this a planned ambush? They certainly did not let him get a word in.
Yeah, well, Senator Lindsey Graham told reporters following the meeting that he had warned President Zelenskyy earlier in the day about not taking the bait. So while we can't say for sure this was a planned ambush by the president and vice president, Graham's comments sure make it sound like there could have been one plan that he was trying to warn Zelenskyy about. I will say, Errol, there was a stunning moment in history played out right before the cameras today in the Oval Office, something we've really never seen before. I think it was the boiling over point of frustration between the Trump administration and President Zelenskyy. You saw it really in the body language between the men, the raised voices, talking over each other. President Trump saying things like, you know, Zelenskyy didn't have the cards to win this war, was gambling with the potential of World War III. And Zelenskyy clashed with both the president and vice president, J.D. Vance, time and time again. He's been really vocal about his frustrations about being left out of these negotiations between the U.S. and Russia about Ukraine, and his frustrations about this proposed mineral deal, which is what brought him to the White House in the first place today. Zelenskyy and Trump were going to sign that deal. It would have allowed the U.S. to access some of Ukraine's rare earth minerals as a form of payback for the last 3 years of security assistance. No deal was signed, though. The talks have ended. The administration actually kicking Zelenskyy out of the White House. We're going to have to wait and see now whether or not these talks will pick up and what the future of this allyship between the U.S. and Ukraine looks like.
Okay, and so, Curtis, what comes next for this after Zelenskyy and Russian President Putin are still going at it as the war slogs into its fourth year?
It's looking more and more, Errol, like Zelensky's going to be the odd man out here. He was not part of that negotiation, or Ukraine wasn't part of that negotiation that took place with the Saudis. This makes it look more like he's going to be pushed to the outskirts of all of this, and his country's fate is going to be decided by Russia and the United States. Now, that could change. There is a lot of political pushback already developing, somewhat from both sides of the aisle, a little bit more gentle pushing on the Republican side, outright outrage coming from the Democrats. But it does look like that Zelenskyy is in a very precarious position here. He's got to go back to his country and sort of explain what's happened. He's come out on social media and has thanked the United States and has thanked the Trump administration. One would think that that may not be enough, though, given what we saw this afternoon.
Absolutely. Now, Cassie, let's switch topics. This week, President Trump held his first cabinet meeting, and Elon Musk, who's not part of the cabinet, by the way, took center stage at that meeting. Musk defended his actions in getting thousands of government workers fired, including by sending a mass email telling people to explain what they did last week on pain of termination if they didn't respond. One of the groups that's hit hardest by all of these cuts is veterans, who make up 28% of the federal workforce. You spoke to one veteran who lost their job. What did they tell you?
Yeah, so House Democratic appropriators say nearly 6,000 veterans have lost their jobs so far as part of these DOGE cuts. We reached out to both the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Office of Personnel Management to try and corroborate that number, but neither one of them got back to us. And when I spoke to that veteran that you mentioned, he was fired from his job with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. He said that he found out that he lost his job on Valentine's Day. He was having a date night with his wife. He opened his email and he found out that way that he would no longer be reporting to work on Monday. He said his family relies on that income, that health insurance. He now is on the hunt for a new job. He's meeting with recruiters. He's sending out applications. And he said he didn't receive severance or payout for the vacation and sick time that he had earned over his service with CISA. So he's really dealing with a life that has been turned upside down. We did see a member of Congress introduce a bill to try and get veterans their jobs back. If it was passed into law, they would be reinstated. But of course, with a Republican-controlled Congress, that'll be difficult to pass.
Okay. Curtis, I want to turn to the big news in your state. Former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy announced that he's running for governor of Ohio next year. You got an exclusive interview with him, and you got his thoughts about the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE for short, which he initially co-managed. I wanted to play a little part of your conversation, then I got a question for you.
Look, I'm proud of everything that we did in not only helping President Trump get elected, but to lay the foundations for taking a look at the regulatory state, for providing at least transparency to the American people.
This way, though?
Well, look, I think that you got to be able to take aim at things Republicans have talked about for a long time, but not gotten done. Transparency to the public has been outstanding. We haven't had that in a very long time.
So now, Curtis, transparency sounds great. Keeping promises to cut government sounds great. But how's it going to work out for Ramaswamy politically as a candidate when the effects of these cuts are felt and it turns out that he helped fire hundreds, if not thousands, of Ohioans, including a lot of veterans?
That's certainly going to be the narrative that comes from the other side. However, Trump remains very popular in this state, and Ramaswamy does have Trump's endorsement. And so you have to wonder, what is the path forward, at least for the Republicans in the primary? Someone like Attorney General Dave Yost, who is also running, how difficult is it going to be to mount a campaign given that you've got the support coming from the White House? One imagines that raising money under those circumstances is going to be very difficult. Again, political memory, right, is something that we've talked about a lot, and how short it can be for many people in this country. That being said, if people are hurting, the closer we get to a primary, and certainly the closer we get to a general here in Ohio, that could have some backlash, some blowback on Ramaswamy. But as for now, he looks to be in control of this race, a front runner. I'll go ahead and say that, certainly based on some of the internal polling that's been revealed. Okay, great get. Thank you very much, Curtis. Thank you, Cassie. We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we'll take a closer look at the Trump administration's move to end temporary protected status for Haitians. Stay with us.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
I really am in the middle of nowhere. Every day is different. Chores, come on, homeschooling, and then I fit in the rug business. I just got a new batch of rugs that I'd love to show you. I have a website, and a lot of what I do is sharing my home life. Mommy's leaving. Reliable, high-speed internet is the foundation of our business. Spectrum was great. They went out of their way to make sure that I was okay and I was taken care of. Shoo! And that's the awesomeness of having Spectrum.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Watching The Big Deal, where we are now focused on President Trump's immigration crackdown. This week, the Department of Homeland Security confirmed that the temporary protected status for Haitians in America will expire 6 months early on August 3rd. That means nearly 500,000 Haitians who were accepted into our country for humanitarian reasons are now on track to be deported back to Haiti, where a state of emergency has been in effect for nearly a year. Temporary protected status was created by Congress in the 1990s as as a humanitarian measure that allows people displaced by natural disaster or armed conflict to legally live and work here in the United States. Last month, the Trump administration also moved to end protections for Venezuelans who were granted relief after fleeing a dictatorship and civil war in that country. Haitians and Venezuelans make up just two of more than a dozen ethnic groups that currently have protected status here in America. In this report, Spectrum News political reporter Ayanna Harry has reaction from the Haitian community.
They are now trying to create pathways to deport people who were actually in this country legally.
Communities and families on edge, New York lawmakers sounding off.
This decision ignores the dire reality in Haiti.
More than 500,000 Haitians living in the U.S. may soon be at risk of deportation after the Trump administration announced temporary protected status for Haitian migrants will come to an end in August.
People are not even going to restaurants to fear that they could get deported.
Jean-Pierre moved to New York after Haiti's devastating 2010 earthquake. Today, several of his relatives live, work, and pay taxes in the U.S. thanks to their temporary protected status. They all believe returning to Haiti is not an option.
It's violence in Haiti.
In 2021, Haiti's president was assassinated. Today, the capital city is largely controlled by gangs. The UN humanitarian coordinator for Haiti calling conditions there an unprecedented crisis.
I would say it is really heartbreaking to see, to witness, to listen to victims of violence.
Haitian communities across the country are bracing for potential deportations, like in Springfield, Ohio, where President Donald Trump falsely claimed that Haitians in the city were eating their neighbors' pets. In October, Trump was asked about his plans for TPS and Haiti as president. Temporary protected status was designed to allow people to live lawfully in the U.S. while their home country experiences armed conflict or natural disaster. In announcing the end of TPS for Haiti, the Department of Homeland Security said the system had been abused and exploited for decades.
You have to remove the people and you have to bring them back to their own country.
Ayanna Harry, Spectrum News.
Joining me now with more on all of this is Vanya Andre, the editor-in-chief of the Haitian Times media organization. And Vanya, thanks for being here. The Trump administration has argued that the TPS system has been, quote, exploited and abused. But as we have seen, many Haitians see the program as a lifeline, especially those who have been living here for years. What is the reaction to this news about people being sent back?
Well, I think the idea that this is a system that's been exploited just shows how devoid of reality he is about the situation that's happening in Haiti. We have a situation here where we have armed gangs that are literally going neighborhood by neighborhood, overtaking the capital, causing a humanitarian crisis, thousands of people fleeing from their homes, and day-to-day life disrupted. And so this idea that there's exploitation happening in terms of people trying to game the system is just completely, it's far-fetched and so far from the truth.
In a related way, the prelude to a lot of this deportation order was a tall tale that we heard on the campaign trail, where Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, were falsely accused of eating people's pets. In fact, Donald Trump famously said this during a presidential debate. Let's take a look at that.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
So, I mean, as a quick fact check, what is the truth of that, and how did it set the stage for the current deportation order?
I mean, it was absolutely like a debunked rumor. The person who inadvertently caused this rumor came out and said that there was no truth to it. But what you really see happening here is something that Haitians and Black immigrants are very used to in this country, and that's being scapegoated during a time of election to try to explain why certain populations of certain demographics of the population isn't thriving the way that they want to. They want to put blame on someone else. On the other side, we have bigger problems to really think about. The main harm that it caused was causing fear and insecurity for folks that were in Ohio. But writ large, the community knows that there are battles to face here in America, but then also back home.
We should note that President Trump actually attempted to end TPS, temporary protected status designation, for several countries, including Haiti, during his first term in office. But it was on hold as a court battle played out. Is that likely to happen again?
Absolutely. The main concern, though, is that unlike the first term, where we had some confidence in the courts, we see a court system here that is heavily influenced by conservative and Republican ideologies. And so the success that we saw with these legal challenges in the first term, we're not 100% sure how that will play out this term. But what we do know is that it's increasingly important for advocates to speak up and to be able to highlight to folks here in America that the situation in Haiti is not much different. If anything, it's worse than when TPS was initially granted in the wake of the earthquake in 2010.
Well, yeah, in fact, I mean, I see here, according to the United Nations, more than 5,600 people were killed in Haiti last year. That's more than 107 people every single week. More than 1 million Haitians are homeless due to the gang violence that you were talking about. What can deportees expect to face if they are, in fact, sent back there?
They're going to face a society that is overwhelmingly unable to handle and repatriate them. There has been no word from the Haitian government in terms of how they would even attempt to repatriate these citizens. They're coming back to a capital that is really the lifeblood of the country, that is overrun with gangs. There's limited job opportunities, and effectively, an open-air prison to some degree because of all of the flight restrictions that have happened over the last several months. And so they're going back into chaos where there's not really any avenue for prosperity or opportunity like they would encounter here.
Okay, well, we're going to keep an eye on all of this. Thank you so much for joining me, Vanya Andre. We're not done just yet. Coming up, we will bring you a preview of the president's speech to both chambers of Congress. That's coming up next week. Stay with us.
For the millions of school-aged children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive, regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms, available on the Spectrum News app.
Starting a business is hard. You have to stay connected at all times.
As we've been growing the studio, Spectrum's been there every step of the way. I'm always able to make the phone call that I need. I'm able to shoot that text message or that email. Every vital piece of equipment that we have here uses Spectrum.
Fast, reliable internet, starting at $40 a month, backed by the Spectrum commitment to keep your business connected.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Thanks for staying with The Big Deal. President Trump is preparing to address a joint session of Congress on Tuesday, where he is expected to lay out his agenda for the year. It will mark the president's first major speech since taking office more than a month ago. Joining me now to preview next week's Big Deal is Spectrum News Chief National Political Reporter Josh Robin. And Josh, President Trump is expected to do what is essentially the State of the Union address, but it's not, for complicated reasons not worth getting into. This is his chance to lay out a broad agenda. What are you expecting expecting to hear?
I'm expecting him to make a speech that would be familiar to a lot of Trump speeches, and he has given an awful lot of them, including in that same Capitol, under that same Capitol. I think that he'll talk a lot about domestic issues. He's going to try to put some pressure on Republicans, because no Democrats are expected to vote for it, to pass his domestic agenda that would extend his tax cuts, that would bring about some cuts, but not cuts to where, frankly, the bulk of the money is, which is Medicaid and Social Security. I think that there will be ultimately some cuts there, but the president will frame that as combating fraud. I think also that he will talk about the cultural issues that have marked a good chunk of the early part of his administration, cracking down on DEI, cracking down on trans rights. I think he'll also, frankly, talk about the campaign and his historic win. And I think that it will have about half the country pretty happy and half the country pretty upset.
Well,
frankly.
the people who are going to be upset might include some of the Democrats. Who will be delivering the Democratic response on Tuesday night?
It's an interesting choice. It's Alyssa Slotkin. She's the new senator from Michigan. That's obviously a swing state. She was a representative before. She has served in the national security before that. And it's probably politically a smart move for the Democrats because it's a swing state. It's a new face. It's someone who has national security experience. And if Democrats are to win, they have to win in those areas, obviously, where Republicans have won before. And I think also that they want someone new, and it'll introduce Alyssa Slotkin to a national audience, or more so. Additionally, and this is kind of interesting, the Working Families Party is putting up someone to have a response, and there'll be a Spanish language response as well from a representative from New York City.
Okay, very interesting. I have to end the show with the same topic we started with, which was that clash at the White House between President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. John Bolton, who formerly served as Trump's national security advisor, reacted to that scene by saying on social media, quote, "Trump and Vance have declared themselves to be on Russia's side in the Russo-Ukraine war. This is a catastrophic mistake for America's national security." Do you think this is going to be a topic of discussion at this joint address?
I do. Look, I think that there are still some people within the Republican Party, and obviously John Bolton is one of them, who think that this is a catastrophic mistake. There's probably more who believe that Trump is looking out for American interests first. J.D. Vance has been perhaps the fiercest critic within the Senate when he was a senator of U.S. involvement in Ukraine. And yes, I think that the president will defend his actions and say that when Volodymyr Zelenskyy is ready, then there will be a peace deal. Obviously, this is unleashing some really significant controversy and divisions within this country. One can only hope that somehow, some way, this war will come to an end. And obviously, this was a war that started with the Russian invasion more than 3 years ago.
Okay, amen to that. We hope we do get a peace deal at some point. Thanks very much, Josh. Be sure to tune in on Tuesday, March 4th at 8:55 p.m. Eastern for our live coverage of the presidential address to Congress and the Democratic response. And then stay with us for context and analysis from Spectrum News' team of local experts all around the country. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of The Big Deal. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to your local Spectrum station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Our journey towards improving mental health doesn't always present a clear path. Every Thursday on Your Mental Health, we listen to voices across our communities, discussing the challenges of everyday life and presenting accessible resources to guide us along the path to our well-being, providing hope and empowering choices that light the way to a healthier you.
Your Mental Health with Dr. Nicole Clark, Thursdays on Spectrum News Plus, available on all your favorite devices.
It's game time at the arena, and 20,000 fans are looking for a win. With an ultra-high-speed network and seamless Wi-Fi, fans can get in the door fast and share the game's best moments in real time. And with Spectrum Business committed to keeping them connected 100% of the time, they won't miss a second of the action. A secure, reliable connection from Spectrum Business means the fan experience is a guaranteed win.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum.